Billie serves as Ernst Young's America's Inclusiveness Officer. She is a senior client-serving partner who works with some of the firm's largest global accounts, while also serving as a member of the company's executive board. Billie began her career at Ernst Young in 1974, and 10 years later became one of only 5 female partners. She then left Ernst Young to become CFO of AMX and subsequently Senior Vice President Finance of Marriott International. She rejoined Ernst Young in 1998 as the corporate finance practice, working with CEOs of major corporations to structure acquisition and financial strategy. And she also serves on the board of directors of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and is a very dear friend to me and to Working Mother Media. Welcome, Billie.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Let's have a seat. I'd also like to, first, I want to say thank you for supporting this research. It's so important to the work we're doing, and we want to conduct this research every year going forward because we've uncovered so much interesting data. And I also want to recognize Jeff. Jeff, could you just stand up a minute? Jeff Merrifield, if you can see him there. Jeff is Associate Director of America's HR Strategy and Operations for Ernst Young, and he's been a tremendous asset, or I don't even want to call him an asset, he's been a leader in our thinking about how to get at these really big questions, how to break them down into meaningful questions which will create meaningful data points that we can then opine seriously about. And so Jeff has been a great partner for us, right, Billie?
He has a creative way of looking at things, and I like the way that we ask a lot of the questions because we have gotten to some very interesting insights, I think.
Yeah, we really have. And the first thing I want to talk about is clean house. So.
Well, you don't have a philosophy on that. When I started in working with Ernst Young, my mother's house was absolutely spotless. You could eat off the floor. And I tell people at my house I would not recommend that. It is seriously dangerous to your health. So I gave up on the clean house a long time ago.
And I did too, but I still feel guilty about it. I mean, when people, like you were talking about, Jennifer, when people come over to my house, I have 4 dogs, and so I am out there, I have the broom at the ready to try to sweep up all those, fur balls on the floor. Well, but, like before they leave, it's all back. I don't understand.
Well, and my husband made me go and get these things at the Container Store, to put all my piles in that, that when people come, we can shove it in the laundry room.
That's a very good, they have
good
nice
trip.
Closets that you can shove everything into. Very clever techniques. How many in the audience, let me just see a show of hands, how many of you feel like judged by the clean house issue by others? Okay, this is pretty big. This is pretty big. I think what we need to do, Andrew, do you have clean house on your list of inactive insights, Andy? Add it. Add it. We got to add clean house, because obviously what we need to change here, based on what Andy said, is we need to change our belief that we are going to be judged by having a messy house. When I walk into a person who has a messy house, who hasn't cleaned it up, all I am in awe of is that she didn't care. Not that the house is, I'm just jealous. I'm incredibly jealous. She didn't care. And I want to get to be that way. So obviously we need to change our beliefs. But I think it's actually a pretty serious issue because I think we waste and spend an enormous amount of time and energy worrying, not necessarily cleaning, but worrying about the clean house.
Well, I think we've laughed a lot. Women have a very strong guilt gene.
Oh, that is so true. Wow.
and we don't just worry about the clean house. We worry about a lot of other things. And I was fascinated by some of Andy's comments, because if we change that underlying belief about the fact that it's okay for us to be fulfilled people, and that, by being fulfilled people, we're going to be a better mother, we're going to be better at work, we're going to be better at other aspects in our lives. I think it does give us a freedom to quit worrying about some of those things and to feel like it's okay to be a working mom and a great professional wherever we choose to work.
Well, and it is the million-dollar question, is how do we get rid of guilt? Mm-hmm. So, changing our underlying beliefs and realizing that we're chickens, not T-Rexes, or whatever the I may have gotten that conclusion wrong, but you know, if we can just see that being a working mom who is you know, fully challenged and fully engaged is our goal, as opposed to, or is our belief that that's good. I'm struggling with this, Andy, but I'm trying to get there. 2.2 million readers are depending on us getting this right. So yeah, I think that's really important. Now, you know, there was something else we were talking about, which is how they feel like they're their own worst critic. I'm not sure if that was in our data, but it's in the book. And you know, if you haven't read through this book yet, be sure you do. It's in your gorgeous bag. But let's talk about that for a second. They said, working mothers said, I'm my own worst critic. And 49% of working mothers and 47% of stay-at-home mothers both said they're their worst critic when we gave them a long list of possible critics. And me being my own worst critic was 10 points higher than the next choice. So, I mean, you know, we've talked about that, Billie, that kind of holds us back.
I think it does. And I think we have to be nicer to ourselves because our working moms are doing a great job in two places. I mean, they're doing a great, or maybe more than two. You know, they may be involved in their community, they may be involved with their children, they may be doing a great job at work and helping other people at work, depending on what the purpose of their work is and that sort of thing. So I think that it kind of goes to that assumption or some of those underlying beliefs of what we have to be. I think it does have to do with how we grow up and what we see growing up. So for example, in my family, I saw my mom work, so I didn't think it was odd for a mom to work. My daughter, who is an engineer now and has 2 children, is a working mom, and she saw mom work. And was everything perfect at our house? No, clearly not. But was everything fun and warm and engaging and that sort of thing?
Cozy.
So, yeah, so we have to quit. I think we do have to be nicer to ourselves. We have to accept that being, you know, the underlying belief is being a fulfilled person is okay and is something that should be the underlying belief, not just being a great mom or not just being a great professional that excludes being able to be a mom or those sort of things.
Let's talk a little bit about why we're so self-critical, to your point. I mean, one thing is that I always think that if I am really hard on myself, then I'll be a step ahead of somebody else criticizing me. So, you know, you can't think of anything that you can criticize me for because I've already thought of it. You know, I'm already there, beating myself up. So, you know, and that translates to the business world. You were telling me about how you see women going through a checklist of stuff that they have to accomplish before they take the next step.
And I think that's true. I think we feel like we have to be perfect at everything. And I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but we believe that we have to accomplish all these things before we're ready to go to the next step. Whereas I think a lot of times men see something that's fascinating and they'll just jump to it. You know,
right. They say, "Oh, I'd like to learn that."
Yeah.
But women want to do everything ahead of learning that.
And I think, you know, some of it is, as we've talked over the years, sometimes we have had our women be more. They had to be more better.
More better.
That's good. They had to be better than other people to get ahead.
Yeah.
Because they were facing some of these underlying beliefs about things, and I think that did put a lot of pressure on women. And I think that the research is showing us that that's impacting, because a lot of times what that comes out as, and Andy talked a little bit about the behaviors that will drive, but if we think we have to be perfect about stuff, we're very defensive when we get feedback, and therefore are not able to take that feedback and use it to be a better professional or better at whatever career we're picking.
Or people won't give you the feedback because they're like, "Oh, I can't tell her anything."
Exactly.
She's so sensitive.
Exactly. And so those are not good things for us to have. So we have to figure out a way to understand what's legitimate things that we should be worrying about, and then what are things that we probably ought to take off the list.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a belief too that we need to work on. Let's talk about these employee engagement factors, because this is something that our audience works with a lot, is how to get our employees as engaged in a positive way as possible at work and keep them that way. And, you know, we can approach this structurally. so that it impacts everybody. But the number one thing that they said they cared about in terms of their own employee engagement was confidence in the company's leaders. I found that fascinating because it could have been anything. I mean, it could have been, something that's lower down here, which is it gives me a sense of purpose or trust in my coworkers or, whatever. But trust in my company leaders. We all know how important leadership is, and we talk about it all the time. But, our employees are speaking to us through this data. They're telling us something. And they're telling us that no matter what they see in our company, and if they have a great manager, they still want to see the company leaders really playing a big and believable role. Any insights into what this audience in the HR field can do with that information?
Well, first, I think we ought to make sure that leaders understand how critical their role is. We've talked about tone at the top and different things like that, but I think this is playing out not just in businesses, but if we see some of the protests that are going on, if we see some of the backlash that's occurred from some of the things that occurred during the economic crisis, I think that's where you're getting a lot of this, is people want to trust that their leadership is honorable, that it's that the members of leadership are going to act with integrity, and that makes your business more secure. As we can see, when leaders don't act with integrity, the business will ultimately come down. And so you don't want to be with a failed company, although that's not the end of the world, but people want to be proud of where they work. They want to know that they're doing the right thing, that their company is very focused on trust and transparency. So as HR professionals and people that work in diversity and inclusiveness, I think it's important, one, to make sure leaders know that everything they're doing is being watched and the trust factor is very, very high. Secondly, I think it's really important to have the diversity of thought in your leadership. Because one of the things that I do think women bring to the table is we'll ask a lot of questions that other people won't. And we want to, we are very focused on the trust and the transparency and some of those kinds of emotional feelings, so we'll ask some of those questions. So I think leadership needs to have that diversity at the table, so there's a very good dialogue about what a company should be doing, what things they should be involved in, how their products are impacting other people, how they can contribute to the greater good, the community in which we all operate.
And the lack of women in the CEO suite is something that we talk about a lot because it's still only 2% of Fortune 500 CEOs, right, which means that there are 490 male CEOs and 10 female, which, when you put it that way, it seems pretty appalling. But do you think that could have a factor there with confidence in co-leaders, that women who are now 50% of the workforce see so few of us in the top in big companies?
I do think that impacts it, and I think that impacts it not only impacts from the trust standpoint, but again, what they were telling us in the survey is when they see their job as a career. So that means they believe they're contributing, they believe that there's a purpose to what they're doing. It's not just collecting my paycheck and going home. I think the need to see female role models is key, and some of those female role models need to be working mothers. And right now at Ernst Young, we're running one of our inclusiveness leadership programs. And the comment this morning, I kicked them off before I came down here, and the comment this morning was, we met last night with our board, our America's Executive Board, and somebody said, it is so exciting to see the diversity of that board. We have 6 women on that board. We have an African American. We have people from Canada, from South America, and from Mexico and Central America, and they enjoyed just the dynamic of seeing people from all different walks of life, different parts of the area that we sit in. And I thought that's an interesting comment, because it was a female that made the comment, and how excited she was, and how the dialogue was different because there were more females in the group.